The leather chair creaked as I leaned back in my office, watching my brother Peter pace furiously in front of my desk. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his normally perfect hair disheveled. Signs that his carefully constructed facade was cracking. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" He spat, throwing a stack of papers onto my desk. "Hiding behind Dad's old promises, but times have changed. The company needs strong leadership, not some weak-willed idealist who cares more about employee benefits than profit margins." My name is James Mitchell, and at 35, I was about to show my older brother exactly what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. 5 years of careful observation and documentation were about to pay off. "Are you done?" I asked calmly, not touching the transfer documents he'd thrown down. "Because if this is another attempt to force me out of Mitchell Construction, you're wasting both our time." Peter stopped pacing, his face reddening. "This isn't a request anymore, James. Either you sign over your shares voluntarily or certain information about your past might find its way to the board." I raised an eyebrow, keeping my expression neutral despite the anger building inside me. "What information would that be?" He smiled, the same smug grin he'd worn since childhood when he thought he had the upper hand. "Remember that project in Denver? The one where the numbers didn't quite add up? I know what really happened." The irony almost made me laugh. The Denver project, where I first discovered Peter's illegal kickback scheme with our suppliers. He thought he found dirt on me, but all he'd done was give me an opening. "Interesting you should mention Denver," I said, reaching for my phone. "I have some recordings you might want to hear." His smile faltered slightly. "What recordings?" I pulled up an audio file and pressed play. Peter's voice filled the room. "If anyone asks about the invoices, stick to the story. The extra materials were damaged on site. No one needs to know about our little arrangement." The color drained from his face as I stopped the recording. That's nothing. It proves nothing." "Really?" I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a USB drive. "Because I have 5 years of similar recordings. Phone calls, meetings, video footage of you accepting envelopes in parking garages. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the systematic theft from our family's company?" Peter's hands clenched into fists. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't dare expose this. It would damage the company's reputation." I stood up slowly, meeting his gaze. "See, that's where you're wrong, Peter. I've already exposed it to the right people. The FBI has copies of everything. They've just been building their case, gathering more evidence. Today was your last chance to come clean." "What?" His voice cracked. "You're working with the FBI?" "For the past 3 months," I confirmed. "Ever since I found proof that you were not just taking kickbacks, but laundering money for some very dangerous people. Did you think I wouldn't investigate when our steel suppliers suddenly doubled their prices, but our costs somehow went down?" Peter lunged forward, grabbing the USB drive from my desk, but I didn't try to stop him. "This is the only copy, right? You destroy this, and it's your word against mine." I almost felt sorry for him as I pulled out my phone again, sending a quick text. "Almost. That's just a blank drive, Peter. A prop. Everything real is already safely stored where you can't touch it." As if on cue, there was a knock at my office door. Agent Sarah Martinez stepped in, followed by 2 other FBI agents. "Peter Mitchell, we have some questions about your business dealings." I watched as understanding finally dawned on my brother's face, the realization that his scheme was unraveling, that his own arrogance had been his undoing. "You set me up," he whispered, staring at me with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "No," I corrected him, sitting back down at my desk. "You did this to yourself. I just made sure there would be consequences." The morning after Peter's arrest, I sat in Mitchell Construction's main conference room, facing our stunned board of directors. The mahogany table that had witnessed decades of family leadership now felt like a barrier between 2 worlds, the company we had been and the one we would become. "Let me get this straight," Marcus Chen, our longest-serving board member, said as he reviewed the documents in front of him. "Peter has been running a kickback scheme through our supply chain for 5 years?" "The kickbacks were just the beginning," I replied, pulling up a presentation on the screen. "He was using our legitimate contracts as cover for money laundering. The inflated supply costs, the ghost employees on payroll, the phantom project expenses. It was all designed to clean dirty money for the Ramirez cartel." The room went silent. Tom Bradley, another board member, dropped his glasses onto the table. The cartel? My God, James. Do you realize how deep this goes? I nodded, clicking through to the next slide. That's why I had to be careful. One wrong move, and it wouldn't have just been the company at risk. People could have died. My phone buzzed. Another message from Agent Martinez. Your brother's asking to make a deal. Says he has names. You were right about him cracking under pressure. Sarah, our head of legal, cleared her throat. The question now is how we move forward. This could destroy us if it becomes public. I stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the city skyline. Down below, I could see the cranes and scaffolding of our latest project, a children's hospital we'd won the contract for last year. Peter had fought against bidding on it, claiming the profit margins were too low. Now I knew why. It would have been too visible, too scrutinized for his schemes. We get ahead of it, I said, turning back to face the board. Complete transparency with the authorities, full cooperation with the investigation. We show that Peter's actions were those of a rogue executive, not a reflection of our company's values. And the financial impact? Marcus asked. I clicked to the next slide, showing a series of calculations. I've been preparing for this. Over the past year, I've been quietly restructuring our supplier relationships, building legitimate alternatives to Peter's compromised channels. We'll take a hit, but we'll survive. Just then, my assistant knocked and entered quickly. James, you need to see this. She handed me her tablet, open to a breaking news article. My stomach dropped as I read the headline. Mitchell Construction here arrested in FBI raid. Cartel connections alleged. The board members' phones started buzzing as the news spread. Sarah was already on her phone, likely calling our PR team. But I remained calm, having anticipated this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, raising my voice slightly to cut through the growing chaos. This is what we prepare for. Sarah, initiate Protocol Echo. Marcus, call an emergency shareholder meeting for tomorrow morning. Tom, get our project managers on a conference call. They need to hear this from us first. As the room erupted into activity, I felt a strange sense of relief. The secret I carried for 5 years was finally out. The weight of watching, waiting, documenting every illegal move my brother made, it was over. My phone buzzed again, this time with a call from my mother. I stepped out into the hallway to answer it. James, her voice was shaking. Tell me it's not true. Tell me Peter wouldn't. Mom, I said softly, we need to talk. But not over the phone. Come to my office? An hour later, she sat across from me, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had gone cold. I just finished showing her a small fraction of the evidence I gathered against Peter. All this time, she whispered, you carried this burden alone. Why didn't you come to me? I thought about all the family dinners where Peter had played the perfect son, about how he'd systematically turned our parents against my concerns over the years. Would you have believed me? Peter was always the golden child, Ma. The one who could do no wrong. She flinched at my words, but didn't argue. And now? What happens to him now? That depends on how much he cooperates, I said, checking a new message from Agent Martinez. Right now, he's trying to save himself by giving up his contacts in the cartel. And the company? She asked. Your father built this from nothing, James. It was his legacy to both of you. I walked to my office wall, where a photo hung of my father and me at my first construction site. I was 12, wearing an oversized hard hat, beaming up at him. That's why I had to stop Peter, Mom. Dad built this company on integrity, on doing things right. Peter was destroying that, piece by piece. She stood up, walking over to join me at the photo. Your father would be proud of you, James, not just for saving the company, but for how you did it. You gave Peter every chance to stop, didn't you? I nodded, remembering the countless subtle warnings I'd dropped over the years, the opportunities I created for him to come clean. Until the very end. But he was too far gone, too convinced of his own invincibility. 6 months after Peter's arrest, I stood at the podium in Mitchell Construction's main auditorium, facing our employees, the press, and a future I never expected to navigate alone. Today marks a new chapter, I began, my voice steady despite the cameras flashing. Mitchell Construction isn't just surviving. We're emerging stronger, more transparent, and more committed than ever to our core values. The past months had been a whirlwind of federal investigations, damage control, and rebuilding trust. Peter had eventually pleaded guilty, turning state's evidence against the cartel in exchange for a reduced sentence. His cooperation had led to dozens of arrests and the dismantling of a major money laundering operation. As I continued my speech, I caught sight of Agent Martinez in the audience, giving me a subtle nod. Earlier that morning, she delivered the news. The last of Peter's cartel contacts had been arrested in Mexico. The threat that had hung over our company was finally gone. Some of you have asked why I waited so long to expose what was happening, I said, addressing the question that had haunted many discussions. The truth is, gathering evidence wasn't enough. We needed to ensure that when we moved, we could protect everyone involved. Our employees, our clients, our partners. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from Peter's lawyer. He wanted to meet. Again. I ignored it, focusing instead on the faces before me. These were the people who mattered now, the ones who had stuck with us through the crisis. In the past 6 months, we've implemented new oversight measures, restructured our supply chain, and established the most rigorous compliance program in the industry. But more importantly, we've renewed our commitment to what matters most, building not just structures, but trust. After the presentation, I retreated to my office to find my mother waiting. She looked better than she had in months, the shadow of Peter's betrayal finally lifting from her eyes. He wrote to me, she said without preamble. From prison. I sat down behind my desk, already guessing what was coming. And? He wants to meet with you. Says he has information about other companies involved in his schemes. Claims he wants to make things right. I pulled out my tablet, bringing up the latest company financials. Our profits are up 15% since we cleaned house. Client confidence is restored. The FBI has everything they need from him. There's nothing left to make right. He's still your brother, James. I looked up at her, seeing the pain in her eyes. No, Mom, he stopped being my brother the moment he decided to put everyone in this company at risk for his own greed. Just then, Sarah burst into my office, her face flushed with excitement. James, you need to see this. The Children's Hospital project? We just got the final approval. All the funding is secured. I smiled, remembering how Peter had mocked this project as a waste of resources. Get the team together. Let's do this right. My mother watched this exchange with a mixture of sadness and pride. Your father always said you had the heart for this business. Peter had the ambition, but you had the heart. Dad also said something else. I replied, standing up. He said success without integrity isn't success at all. It's just failure in disguise. Later that evening, as I walked through the quiet halls of our headquarters, I paused at the wall of company photos. There was one from the groundbreaking of our first major project. Dad, Peter, and me, all wearing hard hats and smiling. I thought about taking it down after everything that happened, but decided against it. It was a reminder of where we came from and why the truth mattered. My phone buzzed one last time, another message from Peter's lawyer. Final chance. He has information you need to hear. I typed a simple reply. The truth already came out. There's nothing left to say. Turning off my phone, I gathered my things and headed for the elevator. Tomorrow, we would break ground on the Children's Hospital. It would be the largest project in our company's history and the first one that was entirely mine to lead. As I drove home, the city lights twinkling around me, I thought about the legacy my father had left us. Peter had seen it as something to exploit, a tool for his own advancement. But I understood now what Dad had been trying to teach us all along. True success isn't measured in profit margins or power plays. It's measured in the lives you touch, the trust you build, and the integrity you maintain when no one's watching. The next morning, as I stood at the hospital construction site watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of hope, I felt a deep sense of peace. Peter had tried to destroy our family's legacy, but in doing so, he'd only made it stronger. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating your enemies, but from staying true to who you are. The company would move forward, building not just buildings, but a future founded on trust, integrity, and the simple belief that doing the right thing matters. That was a legacy worth protecting, worth fighting for. And in the end, that was the only victory that truly mattered.